Hello and welcome to the first episode of 2026 here on Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf, once again talking about the game we all love.
Yes, we are. I hope you're all well rested after Christmas and New Year and ready to get stuck into a brilliant time of the snooker calendar. It's Masters time.
It really is a wonderful time. Absolutely correct, Phil. Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks for tuning in. One of snooker's great events, the Masters, is on the way, and we have one of snooker's great voices to help us preview the tournament. Today's guest is quite simply one of snooker's best friends. He played the game professionally for 2 decades, reaching as high as number 3 in the world rankings and winning a host of tournaments, including the International Open, Pontins Professional and Scottish Masters, along with the BBC's legendary Pot Black. He also reached a UK Championship final and was a semi-finalist at the World Championship and at the Masters, where he reached the last 4 on 3 occasions. Since retiring, he's moved into the world of television and has made that arena his own. An outstanding commentator and pundit, there isn't a channel he hasn't worked for, and he is a regular face and voice on TNT Sports. For the second time, we welcome the brilliant Neal Foulds to Talking Snooker. Neil, it's smashing to see you. How are you?
Good evening, guys. Yeah, very good. Actually, am I the first to be on here twice? Then is that because I thought you could only be on once? A bit like this is your life. You can't be on it a second time.
Well, I've got to give a serious answer for different sort of reasons. Sponsorship, I guess. We had Richard Mann on twice, didn't we, Phil?
Richard Mann. Now he's a good lad. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
He's
of
a
course.
lovely boy, Richard.
Yeah.
I think you're the second to be on
Fair
twice.
enough. That's good. That's good.
It's very good. Oh, me and Phil were looking actually. The last time you were on was January 2022. So it's a bit like the Olympics every 4 years.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the kind of gravitas we're talking, you know.
Well, okay. Well, I'll take that.
Good man. Well, Neil, one thing we definitely want to start with your playing days. We're going to focus a lot more on other people playing, but we definitely want to get one question in, at least at the top, about your memories of playing at the Masters. I mean, you reached the semi-finals 3 times when it was at the Wembley Conference Centre. And what are your memories as a whole of playing in the tournament?
Well, I mean, actually, I always found it very high pressure playing there because I was living at the time in Perivale, which is, probably about a 10-minute drive away from Wembley, where the Masters used to be played at the Conference Centre. And I always felt a lot of pressure, the kind of pressure that maybe Jimmy White feels now. Or he did getting tickets, and I used to get tickets for that week, especially like 20 or 30, 40, 50 different people wanted tickets. No one wanted to pay. They just wanted tickets, that's what it's all about. But I understood how other people felt having to do that all the time, because all of a sudden I had a lot of people coming to watch me. But if I was playing anywhere remotely far away, no one wanted to come. They just wanted to be there. And if I had a difficult match against someone like Jimmy or Steve Davis, then they'd want to come and watch that even more. I got the feeling that a lot of these people didn't actually want to see me play at all. They just wanted to be there, and I could get them tickets. That's what I worked out. But as far as the event is concerned, I have to say that it still rates as one of the best venues at the Wembley Conference Centre. I know it's long since demolished, and I think it was a shame that had to go, because that was a pretty plush venue. That really, I see a lot of people talking now who go to snooker complaining about the seats, and they're a bit cramped, and those benches that were in Wigan or wherever it was, that was pretty dreadful. But one thing for sure is it was I don't know if either of these you two guys would have gone there, but it was really comfortable, big plush seats. You could fall asleep sitting there watching those matches, just because it was so comfortable.
And
Yeah,
your record, though, you mentioned 3 semis. Nick mentioned 3 semis. 3 out of
Yeah.
7 visits got to a semi. So you dealt with that pressure all right.
Parrott did me a couple of times. JP, yeah, I lost to him. And the year that Alan broke Stephen's record, he beat me, I think, quite narrowly in the semi-finals that year. I mean, I would have been in the final. I'm not sure I would have been the person to stop Stephen's run continuing like Alan was. But yeah, look, I did enjoy playing there. I beat Steve Davis there a couple of years running, which I always liked, although maybe Steve would argue that was never his favourite tournament. For him, he only won it 3 times, but given his track record, that wasn't a lot really. A bit like John Higgins these days, maybe the Masters is not his favourite. But no, I had some great times there, and it was an outstanding venue. I never fancied it being so good. I never played it when it was at the Arena, of course. That was way after my playing days. But Wembley Arena didn't work for me, and now of course the Ali Pali, terrific venue again. So it's a pretty historic tournament. I was at the very first one at the New London Theatre, Drury Lane, with my dad as a young lad. So I go right back to the very first one for having been involved in it in some way, even just watching.
What was that venue like? Have you got clear memories of that?
Yeah, it was a obviously a theatre. It didn't seem quite, looking back, as I remember, there was only seats. There wasn't seats all the way around, and as I recall it, you were kind of looking down at the table, um, without much around the sides. It didn't seem quite suited to snooker, but of course, at the time, we didn't really know a lot different. It was, you're talking about right at the, well, I mean, if you think about it, it was actually before the Crucible, wasn't it? Just about in
Yeah.
'77, wasn't it? So yeah, we didn't know what to compare it with, but it was very enjoyable as a kid being there. I think I was about 13 years of age.
Wow. And yeah, you mentioned JP there. I was looking at your Masters record, and you played him 4 times at the Masters, which
Yeah.
out of 7 visits, that's a lot, isn't it? And but I wondered if you, not necessarily him, but did you have one sort of standout rival from your playing days, who you felt like you played a lot and you really wanted to get one over?
Well, I suppose JP would have been one really, because we grew up together, played in all these junior events together. We played in the British, as they used to call it. It was called the British Boys then. Of course, it would never be called the British Boys event now, but it was called that, which was the under 16s. And I met John for the first time at the Commonwealth Club in Blackpool, where we played in that, and then we played in the British Youth Final as well, as it was called, the under 19s. So yeah, I mean, I suppose John was one of my contemporaries, although we were doubles partners in the Hofmeister World Doubles. But I suppose he would be the nearest thing, since you asked me that question, because we did grow up virtually the same time. He's a bit younger than me, not a lot, about a year. So probably John. I mean, obviously, I grew up also with Jimmy White, but from the other side of London, and our lives sort of didn't go in the same directions. Let's just say it. Also, as a player, he achieved a world of more than I did. But it was just that, I'd rather. Jimmy used to like playing cards late at night and smoking and drinking. I used to like to go to Lord's Cricket Ground and sit there all day watching county cricket. So we didn't really have the same lifestyles. It has to be said. Nowadays it's very different. We're good pals, obviously, we always have been, but we didn't go in the same circles. Let's just say, as youngsters.
Yeah, understandable.
Well, I can listen to you talk about those days all day. I think to your credit, you're very much an up-to-date person. I could be wrong here, but I get the credit. Sometimes you'd like, I don't really want to talk about those old days, but I mean, you do it very well. And I mean, I was say regular, but I went quite a lot to the Wembley Conference Centre, and I was just thinking, I'm planning to do some more memories in a broadcast soon, and I was at the Williams Hunter final, for example, and O2, wonderful things like that. But one thing to remember, which is kind of a bit mad, really, and you sometimes get it in various countries where you go to now, people smoking indoors, which is barking mad for younger people now that are like, how unhygienic was that? But of course, everyone just smoked, didn't they, really? And it was just part of normal life then, I guess. And Wembley Conference Centre for the Masters was no different.
No, that's right. And of course, the fact that it was sponsored by a tobacco company, the B&H, we know what it was. No point in pretending we don't know who they were. But and they couldn't give cigarettes away enough, really,
That's
whether you
right.
smoked or not. Even when you was in the players' room, there'd be like glasses. Like, it's almost like a sort of like almost a magazine of cigarettes, if you like, in a glass. All there just waiting for you, if you were that way inclined. And they'd give you them, and so they couldn't really. It was way before the days of the smoking ban, and way before the days of tobacco sponsorship being excluded. So yeah, it played a
Yeah.
huge part in things. Let's be honest, and those days seem an awful long time ago now, don't they? And the world has changed for the better, I guess. I mean, I've never
Hmm.
been against people doing what they want to do, but yeah, I mean, things are very different now, aren't they?
Well, I was a smoker back then for my sins, long giving it up now. But I mean, it's pretty vile to think about it that people used to smoking places where people ate
Yeah,
and all sort. We're going off the topic a bit, but yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. That has changed for the better, undoubtedly. But yeah, wonderful days. And but listen, we're going to talk, aren't we, about this 2026 Masters, which we just can't wait for. And I mean, let's just do it by schedules, shall we? And start, with Sunday afternoon, Neil. And the thing I think about Shaun Murphy, Wu Yize, I mean, you want players to play well in every match, but I really want these two to perform because I think this could be an absolute cracker to kick the tournament off. I mean, Shaun was just fabulous last year. I have spoken to him for that Sporting Life interview I've got coming up actually, and he mentioned that he thought the first hour was important, and that kind of my ears pricked up. So I thought you don't hear time very often. You hear it in frames terms, but time is something you hear more in football. But I thought it was a good call. He's saying, if Wu settles quickly, he'll be dangerous. That obviously Shaun's intention will be for that not to happen, for to get off to a flying start. But I just think overall, I love Wu Yize, I love watching him play. Shaun's obviously a seasoned competitor. We couldn't have a better opening.
The smashing game, isn't it? That business about the first hour, it does remind me a bit of when you're watching England play cricket, doesn't it? Oh, you've got to get through the first hour without losing a wicket and all this. But no, I hadn't thought of it like that before. But you're right, it's an absolute humdinger of a game because, Shaun he had a terrific 2025, didn't he? We know he won the Masters where he was sensational, but he did play well all year, I thought, all year long. And obviously, Peter Ebdon's in his corner. That might have given him a bit of extra resolve and belief. But Wu Yize, well, he's best and his worst. There's a big gap between them, but I want to believe he's going to be at his best, and then he's an absolute handful for anybody. He's just a little bit inconsistent, but he's worked his way into the 16 in the world now by winning big, and that is a terrific game.
Yeah, they played once this year or last year now, but
Yeah.
in Xi'an, and that was a belter, 5-4 Murphy. So I think they both know what they've got on their hands, and there's not going to be a lot of safety played. I think we can be confident of that.
I just think that you look at that a match like that now. I don't think anyone these days is going to be particularly overawed in the way maybe in years gone by they would be. But Will Yize hasn't played there before. We don't know quite how he's going to play. And Murphy's defending champion, so he's experienced. But then what he doesn't want is Will Yize to come out sort of firing because. The crowd could get behind Wu Yize. They're going to like, the London crowd can, they've got opinions on the game and they can be a little bit noisy at times, as we know. A little bit different to the crowds maybe at York or Sheffield, but if Wu Yize starts firing in long pots, they'll get behind him. And I'm really looking forward to that one. I wouldn't be so sure, who would win it. I mean, I think I'd go with Murphy just because he is champion and he played so well last year. But a lot depends to me how Wu Yize copes with playing there for the first time.
Sure, and I think we move on to Mark Selby's Xiao Guodong. That's a match coming up on Sunday night, and well, they first met back in 2010, and their most famous match was the last 16 of the World Championship in 2017. Selby winning that 13-6. There was a recent win for Xiao, actually, the champion of champions in 2024, winning 6-5. I mean, Xiao in his first Masters, but showed at the Champion of the Champions and elsewhere in recent times that he doesn't sort of shy away from the big stage. But I guess, Neil, you've got to say, talk about Mark, having a great 2025. I mean, it was Phil Hay did his brilliant guide of the best players. He had that top. I think most of us would. He's the UK champion. He's absolutely flying. But I guess the other thing is quite hard to win these really big ones, sort of back to back, eh?
Well, it is really, but he won the champion of champions, and of course, as you say, became UK champion. He now looks to have overcome any. I mean, he said something very interesting a couple of times last season, which I can relate to with Mark. Sometimes he gets in his own way. He looks to be playing well, and then somewhere along the lines, a little bit of doubt has crept in, and he can turn an easy win into a real struggle. But he seems to have overcome all that now. I can't see much beyond him in this match. Although you remember that match you mentioned where they played in the Champion of Champions. If you remember, Xiao Guodong was 3-0 down against O'Sullivan and beat him, and
Mm.
then he was 3-0 down against Selby and won that match. So we know what he's capable of. He's a vastly improved player, but it is like you say, his first time playing here. So I know that Mark Selby's recent record in the Masters has not been great, but it wasn't great in the UK. So I think he's over that now, and he looks to be a big force. So I have to be with Selby there.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable, hasn't he? That those two tournament wins, because he's still, even when he wasn't at his best, he was still good enough to pick up tournaments. But those two wins, he did look at his best for a lot of them. It was super impressive. And I had a look back at who's done the UK Masters double in the same season,
Mm,
and there's six people who've done it. And I suppose if you were naming six people, it's the exact six you would name, because it's
mm,
probably the top six best players ever. If you're saying Davis, Hendry, Higgins, Williams, Selby, O'Sullivan. Um, so
mm.
Selby is one of them who's done it. Um, so I wouldn't rule him out. I mean, he's the form player in the world right now. I think you've got to say. And Zhao, yeah, I mean, he's vastly improved, like you say, but he's not done much at all since defending his Wuhan title, and he's not done much at all in Triple Crown events before. Obviously, this is his debut here, but he's never done anything at the UK, and he's never been beyond the second round at the Crucible either. Although he did come closest so far last season, last year, when he got to that decider against Higgins to get to the quarters. So a bit of something there, but yeah, there's no big shocks in the Masters, is it? Because they're all top players, but Selby would be one of my firmer favourites to win in the first round.
And that's a fair way of saying it. I'm not sure Nostradamus could call Mark Williams Mark Allen. He wouldn't want to. I mean, it's a nightmare one, really. I mean, both won a ranking event this season, as you would expect with these two. Williams winning the Xi'an Grand Prix to become the oldest ever winner of a ranking event, and Allen winning the English Open. Allen leads the head-to-heads overall, but not by much. Williams has won the last two. The Tour semis in 24, he won 10-5. And the British Open earlier this season, he won 4-3. So maybe over to you, Phil, on this one. Just to match the saver, isn't it? I mean, I can hear your voice and other. I think you said before, if Mark Williams is vulnerable, it's probably earlier. So I think for that reason, maybe you might. I have a slight feeling Mark Allen will just do it, but I'll be surprised if the losing player here gets fewer than four.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. There's not much that would surprise me, really. They're both unpredictable, especially Allen's really confusing at the minute because he's actually, when you look at his results, had quite a good season. He's won a tournament. I think he's been to three other ranking semis. Um, but also he sort of looks like he hadn't played well at all a lot of the time. It's quite confusing what's going on. He turned up with a new cue in Scotland, or a different cue, got to the semis with that, but then he said he's not using that again. Just to know. And Williams was actually really good until he won in Xi'an, and then he hasn't done much at all since that. So yeah, I mean, and anything could happen there. I wouldn't be surprised. I'd shade Williams just about. Um, but that's based on almost nothing. I know him and Robertson and Kyron were in Tibet over the last week or two, weren't they? I don't know. I don't know how much help that was. I saw Williams made a 147 over there, so he must be in good nick. But yeah, no.
Anyone can make those. They're not hard.
Yeah. Tell you what, mate, what I was thinking when I saw those guys in Tibet posting those pictures. Robertson, especially, is one of these players that's been commenting a lot on player travel and stuff, and that's part of the players' union doing too much traveling around for tournaments. And then you spend your spare time on the top of a mountain in Tibet. I don't know. I'm not sure how valid your arguments are going to sound after that. But it did look like a lot of fun. But yeah, no, nothing in that. Who knows? But I'd shade Williams if I had to put money on anyone.
What about you, Neil? Yeah, please step in there. I can
Yeah,
see you. I
no,
can
no,
see you.
sorry.
I can see you laughing about Phil's Tibet line
Well,
there.
no, I was because I was just thinking about the athletes used to train at altitude, didn't they, years ago for the Olympics and all that? And it used to maybe that's what they do in snooker now, getting rarefied air up there. But yeah, look, I agree. I agree with what Phil said. About Mark Allen. It's confusing with Mark because he is as likely to win this as many others that are in it. But I wasn't that happy to hear him say before that, where he got completely dismantled by Chang Bing Yu. Whatever happens, even if I win this week, I'm changing my queue over. This was on the back of, I mean, let's be honest, in the UK, he did play very poorly against Scott Donaldson. He really had a nightmare there that evening. And he'd be the first to admit that. He knows he played poorly. And he just did not. It was a long 6-1 defeat, went on forever. It was a bad game.
Oh yeah.
Scott Donaldson was terrific. All credit to Scott. He'd come through a tough few months, and that was great to see. But He didn't play well. Then he's in that semi-final playing Chang Bing Yu. I'm changing my queue anyway. It's sending very confusing messages through, isn't it? Because there seems to be a lot of this going on at the moment with players changing their queues. Judd has had issues. He changed his queue. Now he went back. And then you've still got the business with Kyron. I think he got damaged, and then he got it repaired, and then he went to another
Mm.
queue, and then he put his other queue in an auction and tried to buy it back out the auction. I tell you what, I know I'm a bit of an old dinosaur, but you should not be messing around with queues. If they've been damaged, yes, of course. I mean, Stephen Indries was damaged, and it couldn't be repaired. That's a different story. But if you're changing queues, it's a very slippery slope to go down because there's only. I mean, why did Judd need to change his cue in the first place? I mean, he had such a terrific 2024, and he just felt the cue was losing its power. Well, I don't understand that because think about Ken Doherty. He had the same cue 45 years until it was physically unusable, and he won a world
Mm.
title during that. And I do think that even though you've got great cue manufacturers these days, if you've won something with a cue, and Mark Allen is a great player, there's no doubt about that. You shouldn't be changing your cues. I remember during lockdown, he won the Champion of Champions, changed his cue the next day. It's his decision, of course. No one else's. It's no one else's problem but his. But it is sending confusing messages. But if he's right with this new cue, if he's happy, I would give him a good chance of winning this match. Mark Williams, you just never know. But I think I'd go with Allen. But the business with cues, as someone who you know played the game and understand that sometimes you're just looking for something that isn't there with cues. It's you that does the work. As long as the cue is of a level, I don't think the rest of it matters.
That's really interesting. Reminds me a little bit of golf, actually. Something I know less about, but I know a fair bit about. Sometimes they tinker too much with this and that. I mean, when I was growing up, one of the absolute maxims, I mean, it was drummed into you a little bit as a viewer, but they were like, do not change your cue. It was like the classic extension of your arm thing, but that's the phrase you hear less now. I used to hear it a lot years ago, but they were like, never do it. But players we've had on here and players I've interviewed elsewhere say they do actually change them a bit more in the last 10, 20 years anyway. It's custom. You talk about Ken with 45 years, then it was players, they were decades, absolute decades with them. So I think the custom is to change them a bit more. But yeah, I mean, recently it's been like, how long does it take to get used to a new cue? Sorry to ask you a simple question, Neil. I mean, is it weeks? Is it months?
I think everyone's different, of course. I know O'Sullivan won the Masters one year with a cue he'd only been using a few days, but not everyone is O'Sullivan. I know that John Higgins changes cues. That's his thing. In fairness to John, cues are the things that he changes. Technique, he's never really changed. He's never had a coach. Um, you say it's customary to change your cue. I don't understand why, but look,
Well, it's
I know
customers
that,
to do it more than they used to, which is
but
I
why
almost
though? But
almost never. I don't know
I
why.
don't know why it is. I really don't know why it is. I mean, Stevens' cue that he won all those world championships was an old Rex Williams Power Glide. It was not an expensive cue, and Alan McManus won the Masters with a cue that it really wasn't worth anything. It was. I think he got out of a sports shop. It was all patched up and put together. Um, and I know, as I say, I'm sounding old fashioned now. There's some great cue manufacturers around, but ultimately it's still a bit of wood, and I would be reluctant to change. We're going to get onto other players, but Kyron and Judd both lost in matches this season, and so I didn't know where to aim. And if you get to that sort of confusion, it's hard enough game as it is without worrying about. "No, I don't know how I'm going to get on." And look, I hope Mark Allen's over it and he's got a cue that he loves and he sticks with it. That's all I'll say about that. And if so, I think he'll be one of the players to beat. So I'm going to go with Allen in the match.
All very interesting. Very interesting words indeed. I mean, I think personally, Phil's got a point. Actually, it could be anything, but I just have a feeling that'll be really close. We'll see. Maybe Phil, I'll pass to you and see what you have to make of Shaun Tom Gary Wilson, which is coming up on Monday night at 7 p.m.
Yeah, another one. I mean, they're all quite unpredictable to some extent, but Zhao is really hard to predict in general. There's so little to go on when you look back over his career because um, obviously he had the ban and then he was sort of up and down before that. Now he's the world champion, but he's looked kind of bang average a lot of this season so far. But then when he's on, he looked good in Saudi when he won that invitational. Obviously, he looked dynamite at the Crucible. But it's just hard to know what he's going to do. Some of the time he just doesn't look that engaged. I know Alan McManus has been quite hard on him, saying he needs to sort of toughen up. I think that was his words. Um, so yeah, I mean, if he's on, you'd be no surprised if he wins the whole thing. But if he turns up and he's looking a bit like he has done in recent games, when I watched him play Joe O'Connor recently and lost that, then you'd be no surprise if Gary Wilson wins relatively easily. But you'd like to think he'd be locked in and ready to go at the Masters. So if they both play their best, then Zhao's favourite. But I just don't know what to make of him. Really, it's been an odd campaign as world champion so far for me.
He's not done badly, is he? I mean, he won the Golden Ball event, which was a good prize. It wasn't a ranking event, and it was all about the money, wasn't it? As we know, but I think at times he's looked really good, and like you say, at times he's looked a little bit inconsistent. I mean, these two haven't played since. Well, I mean, so much has happened since they last played. They haven't played since 2020, and that was pre-COVID, pre-ban, pre-everything, wasn't it? For Zhao Jintong, he won the last of their 5 meetings, didn't he? So. I'm a big Zhao Jintong fan. It's difficult, I'm sure, being world champion for the first time for anybody. And I honestly don't think he's done that badly. But maybe we all expected, that this was going to be the start of a big thing. But for him, this stretch now, I think, is going to be quite important. The Masters leading up to his defence of the title, and we're going to find out where his game is at because he could win the Masters, he could win the Worlds, which I'm not sure he will beat the curse, but he could have a great second half of the season. Then we've said he's done brilliantly, so I'm not against him at all. I think with Gary Wilson's form a bit in and out, he's actually popped out of the 16 for the moment, hasn't he? But he was in it for this cut-off. I think Zhao Jintong will certainly lift his game for playing, at the Masters, of course, back in the top flight again.
Yeah, I would be a bit surprised if Shaun didn't win this match. Actually, myself, I wouldn't say I strongly fancy him, but I do fancy him. I mean, neither of them have won a match at the Masters, actually, which is, for Shaun reasons, we know that will be to some part to do with the ban, obviously, but Gary's lost there at 21 and then last year, so no form of the arena we're going to speak of. And Wilson's a sort of funny one though, because my instincts are that he hasn't really played well in the last 3 or 4 years in spells and then won something. And I had a look at his sort of stats, and that kind of bears it out. The stuff he's won has come a little bit from nowhere. So I always think he's got potentially, a few big results, and maybe even as we see in a tournament winning him. This is obviously a massive tournament, but so it never surprises me that much when he sort of produces. He's so downbeat. I mean, me and Phil say it time and time again. What he says about his game is not, usually worse than we observers think, but then he's the one in the middle. You know it better than anyone. But he's a downbeat character talking about his game, and it often looks a bit better. But he's a perfectionist like that, so he's a fascinating guy to think about. Gary Wilson, actually, in many ways. I'm inclined to sort of agree with you, Neil, about Shaun. I looked at the 1 year list. She's 18th, hardly that bad. But I think people had kind of sky high ambition. I mean, that's not Shaun Tong's problem in a way or fault, but I think people thought he'd do so well that maybe he's fallen short of the standards they had for him this season. But as I say, I personally expect him to win that match. I mean, Tuesday afternoon, then next Tuesday is Kyron Wilson, Cedric He. I mean, I love Cedric He as a player. Maybe that thing about the gap between best and worst you said about Yize sort of similar here, Neil. Certainly, his all-round game is sometimes found a bit wanting, I think. I mean, Kyron, listen, hats off. Hats, whatever the phrase is, I'm wrong about Kyron. I thought he would do well again this season, and that hasn't happened. And there have been mitigating circumstances. He still won in Shanghai. This is the high standards we had. He still won a brilliant event. But in terms of what he's done, winning the world title then last season, I thought it would be similar-ish. He has had some issues he talked about off the table. He's had the Q things you've already referenced, Neil. So there are, issues there. He's vulnerable, Kyron, but I think he was talking a bit more positively at the Scottish, wasn't he, than he did at the UK when he was in a really bad place, actually. That's only a month ago. But I think he's in a better place since then. So at the end of all that waffle, I'm going to say, Neil, he's vulnerable. He's vulnerable, Kyron, but I think he'll just about win this for me.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm a big fan of his game, and I like the way that he approached his season as champion. You know, he was playing quicker. He was not hanging around. He wasn't letting any doubt creep in. I think he embraced being world champion, and I thought he did really well. Of course, we know what happened. Everyone thought he had a chance at the World Championships, having had such a good run, and then, of course, the curse got him on day one. Li Pei Fan beat him extraordinarily 6-2 up in that match. You know, and that seems to have set him back. I know he won in Shanghai, like you say. Now he's had the problems with the cues, which we've discussed. No point in going into it again. But the man he's playing is very inconsistent. You know, I don't think he has improved in the way I expected him to. Sergio Wade, he's brilliant. And the year Luca beat him in that world semi-final from 9 up, he looked as if he was just the next huge thing in the game. I mean, Stephen Hendry was at the back of the commentary box that I was in, fretting that he was going to beat his record as the youngest world champion that year. That's what he was talking about. Whether he'd
Mm.
have beaten Selby in the final, that's open to debate, isn't it? But um, he was 9 up in that match with Luca. But I don't know if his game is any better than that now. He's a real handful. Strangely, the match I remember of all the matches they played was when they played in the shootout. If you remember that match that we had all that extraordinary blue ball shootout that went on
Oh
about
yeah.
4 or 5 shots each, Karen and Sergio Way. That's the match I remember, which is weird, really, because they've played at various other times in which Karen's won them.
So it's a weird one, isn't it? He doesn't really feel like a top 16 player to me at the minute because
No,
you try and
no.
remember the runs and obviously that semi the world stands out, but that's not even on his rankings anymore. So he's in the top 16 since then, and then you sort of racking your brains as to why. And there's that final in Wuhan, and I think the semi in the Saudi in Riyadh that that won him a lot of ranking points. And he sort of had a sort of low key run to the quarters in Sheffield last year, didn't he? And I think he beat Gilbert and Ben Wollaston to get there. So yeah, he just doesn't quite feel like he does it. Well, he definitely doesn't do it regularly, and he still hasn't won a tournament. So he's a long way behind Kyron, really. Even Kyron's form struggles. But I suppose again, like you say, we don't put going into the Q thing too much. But Kyron, along with Judd, we just don't really know what situation they're going to be in because watching Kyron in York was like horrible viewing, wasn't it? He was really in a bad place.
Mm.
And I'm sure he's done something to sort that out since then. Um, but he's going to have because that was a tough watch.
It really was. It really was. And as I say, it's the Scottish. He was. I think he might have spoken to you, Phil. He certainly spoke to a number of reporters in a more positive place. So let's obviously hope that continues into the new year. Happy New Year, everyone. Let's have a name check, Phil, and say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf, and our brilliant special guest. It's Neal Foulds. Well, John Higgins, Barry Hawkins, folks, is a match we'll look forward to greatly next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. And it's 20 years since their first meeting. And amazingly, it's 20 years since John Higgins last won the Masters, which is kind of mad when you think about just what an incredible player he is. I think you referenced earlier, that maybe he hasn't done as well. I mean, he still won it twice, but for a player of his immense abilities, that will feel he could have done more than that, obviously. Uh, he was run off in the COVID tournament at Milton Keynes, actually, so he has had recent, experience of going all the way, but lost in the first round the last 3 years. Now, I'm a big law of averages person, so I think, well, that probably can't continue. Having said that, I think it will continue because I think Barry Hawkins will win this, Neil. I think it's going to be close. I've just got in my mind's eye that Barry seems to play well at this tournament. I mean, he's got to 2 finals, so that's obviously he does sometimes, but just a lot of years in that understated Barry way that even at the Masters we don't notice Barry to
It's a
some
good
ex-
point.
to some
Yeah.
extent, and you don't notice anything at the Masters. But Barry even wins matches here that you don't. But no, he's got a good record there. I think another very close one. Wouldn't be at all surprised if it's 6-5. But Neil, I'm going to say
Hmm.
I just fancy Barry for this.
No, you've kind of talked me round. I thought John would win because it seems that he's won all of the big matches they've ever played. I'll make it about 9-5 on the head-to-heads, but that includes a couple of Masters. They've played at the World Championships before and the final of the Welsh, I think, which John beat Barry in. So he seems to have won all the bigger matches between the pair of them. But I get what you're saying. John has got that final in recent years at the Masters. But as you rightly point out, and I was going to mention it, it was at the Marshall Arena. So that was a weird Masters. Let's be honest. It really was. I know that, Yan Bingtao won that, and but without going into it, it's just a sad story what happened because I really enjoyed seeing him win it that year. But it was just a weird Masters. It was nothing. It couldn't have been further removed from what you're going to expect of the Ali Pali,
Mm.
and that was where John played his best. So I don't think he has ever really enjoyed playing in the Masters. I'm sure I've heard him say that before, and he still won it on a couple of occasions. But so I thought John, but the way you put the case across for Barry there, Nick, I can see what you're saying. I think that'll be a close game, and I'll go with John, but I can understand why Barry Hawkins would feel he has a chance in that match.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think there's not too much in that. Yeah, John's spoken about how he just feels like whenever it goes close in these triple crowns that it's going to end up badly for him, and that's what happened last year, wasn't it? Because he got Neil Robertson as the late replacement for Ronnie O'Sullivan. We were expecting the El Clasico, weren't we? And it was still a very good match, Robertson against Higgins, but winning 6-5 from 5-1 down for Robertson was unbelievable, but brutal stuff for Higgins. Um, and then he's lost 6-5 in the most recent UK Championship as well, hasn't he, to Shaun Murphy? So his fears of these tight matches, are valid to an extent. I mean, so if it goes close, he's admitted that that's going to be on his mind. Um, and you'd expect it to go close, yeah, like Barry. I wouldn't expect him to get blown away at all. So, yeah, I guess I'll go John just because you've both gone Barry, but I wouldn't be surprised whatever happens there.
Well, Neil actually did go John in the end, but it's gonna be close. And actually, Phil, let's stick with you, shall we? And say, I mean, they're all great days, but next Wednesday, bloody hell, roll up, roll up. And we got Neil Robertson, Ronnie O'Sullivan to come in a moment. But first of all, Phil, Judd Trump, Ding Junhui. I mean, that's just a beautiful. If I'm going to use the word beautiful, that's a beautiful prospect.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah, I've missed my Higgins stat there. I wrote down. So Higgins has lost 16 times in the first round out of 32 visits to the Masters. So 50% of the time he's been there, he's lost in the first
Wow.
round, which is a lot. And Ding has lost in the first round 11 times, so less, but only out of 19 visits. So well more than
Wow.
50% of the time he's lost in the first round, which is quite remarkable, really,
Mm.
um, for a player his class. Again, obviously they're all class players, but surprising. And yeah, I'd expect Judd to beat him again, really. Ding is again a confusing guy. Like um, when again, obviously you're not surprised to see Ding's in the top 16 at all. But when you're thinking about why he's in there, he doesn't have that many sort of like deep title challenging runs too often in recent past. He won a tournament last season and he beat Chris Wakeley in the final. That's obviously keeping him high at the rankings, but you don't see him in the semis that much now. And it's not that surprising when he goes out early, which is it's confusing because when you see him playing well, he's still one of the greatest players in history. But Judd's had a good recent record against him. Um, Beat him in a few big events recently, including the UK Championship last year. Um, so yeah, I'd be going Judd. Beat him in the fight. Beat him in this tournament last year as well. So with the caveats about the cues, we don't know what cue he's using,
Mm.
what's going to happen in there, but all things being equal, I'd go with Judd.
Yeah, I tend to think that as well. I mean, look, again, hopefully he's got something sorted out now, equipment wise, and that's not going to be a long-term issue. Whether he goes back to his old queue or not, I don't know. But I mean, Ding is so strange. You're right, what you say. I mean, it seems like he's almost gets his season organised for something around about the UK or the international just before, gets all his points out of that. I mean, you think about the the player series events and the old home nations events that we've had over the years. I mean, he's just never cited any of those, is he? Like the
Mm.
heat seeking equipment, you wouldn't find him. He's never involved in any of those events. Doesn't even play in many of them now, but he's just not even a factor. I mean,
Yeah.
all of those 10 years of the home nations, I can barely remember him getting to a quarter final in all those years. So there's no doubt that he has priorities in the game, and the bigger events, which of course this he would see as one. I mean, of course, he won the last ever Wembley Arena Masters, didn't he? Then he proceeded to keep losing in the first round when it came to the Ali Pali. So again, he's got no great record, and I wouldn't fancy him that much. But the proviso is we know what a great player he is, and if Judd's below his best and Ding's on form, then he really entertain the crowds and win. But I'm expecting big things from Judd in 2026. He had for him a very poor season last year, poor year in fact, and I'm expecting Judd to bounce back in a big way.
I
Why do you
think
think?
Ding even more. Even sorry, I'll just one more on
No, no.
Ding. Is that confusing that it, even in the biggest one, he's really struggled. I think he's won one game in the last five visits to the Crucible when he beat Surety last season. Then he had four first round exits before that. So yeah, it's
Mm.
baffling because as I say, he's still in there somewhere. You just see it so rarely.
Yeah, I know. And the other thing about him is, for years we've said, maybe Ding could still be world champion. I don't think anyone thinks that anymore, that Ding will ever be world champion. And here you are with a top 16 player. He's still a major winner. He's done well in the UK Championship, having won it multiple times. But I just don't see him as someone that for 2.5 weeks is going to keep his game together to be world champion anymore. I know we're not talking about the world championships here. We're talking about this match with Judd, and clearly he can win it. Oh, nothing I'd like to see more than him, come back winning again because you've got to like Ding as a player, haven't you, and as a person. But he's become a little inconsistent, and he sometimes looks a little disinterested. But I don't expect that to be the case, at the Ali Pally. I'm sure his mind will be concentrated on the match at least.
No, absolutely. Great, well, wise words from you two there. Not really an awful lot to add. But one thing I would say, and I expect probably Judd will win, but I don't know if it was the only match I saw in the arena, or I might have seen one other, but it's one that I certainly remember being at was the Williams Ding last year. And 12 months is a long time in snooker, but he played brilliantly there to beat Williams Ding. So he's someone that I always think can produce. And I remember I've said it before, probably not that long ago actually even, but Michael McMullen, I remember once he may have been talking with Dave Hendon actually said, I've given up. I just can't. I won't predict Ding. He's almost impossible to do that because the UK's he won recently, and I think the one where he lost the final to Alan, he done almost nothing. And yet he'll turn up at a tournament as prestigious as the UK and go all the way and either win it or get to the final. That's how good he is, obviously. But yeah, he's a hard one to predict. I would expect Judd to win, but I've got that thing in my mind of Dean playing brilliantly in a really big match last year. Well, Robertson O'Sullivan. Wow, that's something special. Next Wednesday, I think we are expecting Ronnie to play. I mean, other eventualities are available, of course, but we'll see. I mean, what I'm going to say is, I think it's hard not to think Neil's the favourite because of Ronnie's element of being underplayed. But it's one of those, I think, Neil. If Ronnie does win this, then he's so dangerous. He's only playing on the Wednesday night. He can go bang, 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 bang and win it. That's what Ronnie's like. So as we know, but I would lean towards Neil purely because of the how much more he's played type thing.
Yeah, possibly. Obviously, when you think back to what happened in Saudi, he made those well, not back to back 147s, but in the same match against Chris Wakelin, he looked $1 million. He lost in the final, as we know, to Neil 10-9. So you have to say that Ronnie was in great form that week, and Neil still beat him. I mean, surely Ronnie's going to turn up, isn't he? What I mean, I've heard a few people saying what you're saying, Nick. Is he or isn't he?
No, I
Well,
think
what?
I think he, I think I think he
Yeah,
will. I think
yeah,
he
but
will.
but
But
why is why can there
it's
be
only
any?
80-20 though. I wouldn't say it's more than 80-20 though.
But what I don't really understand why he might not. I just can't see it. But listen, we've seen it before. He pulled out before, and that's as Phil said, that's why it was meant to be Higgins O'Sullivan last year, and Robertson came in and beat Higgins in the way he did because Ronnie pulled out late doors. But I can't think of an obvious reason why he wouldn't play. But there you are. We'll see, and
No,
I
I
do
think I
hope he
think you're
does
right.
because
He's been in Ireland, and I think by the way he will play. But all I'll say is, as a relatively seasoned writer and broadcaster now, the
yes.
number of times I've said Ronnie O'Sullivan is nailed on, we'll see him virtually, and that rascal has pulled out. But no, for the record, I do expect him to play. Phil Hay.
Yeah, he has been in Ireland. I spoke to Fergal O'Brien today actually about Ronnie being in Celbridge Snooker Club and playing Jordan Brown and playing Aaron Hill there, getting some practice in. So he's preparing properly, taking it very seriously. Unsurprisingly, looked very good during those practice sessions. So yeah, no, I mean it's a mouth-watering game, but you're right. I think it's hard not to favour Neil. He's had a good season, obviously massively because of that win over Ronnie in Saudi. But I think he's won 4 of his last 5 against Ronnie over the last few
Mm.
years, dating back to 2021. One of them was in the Masters, big Tour Championship semi-final, and then that huge final in Saudi. So yeah, no one's going to be surprised if Ronnie O'Sullivan wins the match, but I'd be leaning towards Neil as well.
I'll say one thing about that with O'Sullivan, right? And I think he's the greatest player of all time, and I'm
Mm.
sure most people will think that too. But
Mm.
and he's been quiet, hasn't he, for a while now? Even when he got to the World semi-finals last year, he was kind of winging it, wasn't he? He wasn't playing well. He beat players who didn't fancy. I didn't think they fancied beating him come the day until he met up with Jin Tong, who mauled him actually with a session left. So he's been quiet. But there's another wave of O'Sullivan in there somewhere. I know he's 50 years of age now. But somewhere along the lines, there's a big spell of O'Sullivan brilliance. I don't know if it's going to be this week. I don't know if it'll be at the Worlds. I suspect he might play well at the World Championship this year, but I'm not. I can't write him off completely. That would be ridiculous to do so because if someone as brilliant as player as he is, there is another big tournament in him, but I don't know which one it's going to be. That's the problem.
And I agree with you actually, and
Mm.
I would
I
say the
do.
odds are that it is one of the biggest 3, or Saudi, I suppose, because he plays the Triple Crowns, doesn't he? He plays Saudi, and then he largely plays the Chinese ranking events, and he never does well in the Chinese ranking events, really. The big 1-8 tournaments over there. So you could sort of wipe them out of the options of when he's going to come good, and that just leaves Saudi in the Triple Crown. So I think if you were betting on him winning any tournament, it would be one of the very, very biggest ones.
Yeah, I agree as well. We're all in agreement there. In fact, one of the very good judges, someone we know, has got a lovely phrase in a piece coming up soon saying that anyone's that expecting nothing more from Ronnie or for him not to be challenging for the very big events just hasn't been paying attention enough over the last 3 decades. I think that's a good way of saying it. I think, again, few people have said, and something I would definitely concur with. I know this is the Masters now, but won't be long until we're talking World Championship. There'll be one World Championship still left in Ronnie O'Sullivan's career when the stars are aligning. And what I mean is he'll be looking good, he'll be feeling, there might be more than one. There'll be one year when everything will come together for him, that he's in the right place, maybe a couple of his rivals aren't fine, whatever, and then he'll have a really big chance. He always has a chance, but there'll be one, he's, 50 now, there'll be one when he goes there and yeah, I don't know whether he'll win another world championship, actually. It doesn't bother me if it's 7-7. There'll be a nice symmetry to that, me and Hendry. I don't think so. With Ronnie, with Ronnie and Hendry. Yeah, he's obviously well capable of winning this. But it's that thing I said about Wednesday near. I think that's the
Yeah.
Stuart Bingham one. When Stuart Bingham, I could be wrong, but I think when Stuart won in 20, the one thing that came to my mind I think a lot about that 20 tournament, partly because I can't believe Ali Carter lost the final. He played brilliantly for a losing finalist. And I felt sorry for him, but I felt delighted for Stuart as well. So a mixture of things. But I think Stuart was the Wednesday night one. And when you got that and you're playing well, you can go bang, 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 bang in a way you can't do at any other event. And all you have to do is keep winning from Wednesday to Sunday. That's not a lot of days to keep playing well in, if you know what I mean.
No, that's right. And look, I agree that O'Sullivan might just play brilliantly all week. One thing you can say, he does put the hours in. I've seen those pictures of him over at that Selbridge club playing. Aaron Hill and Jordan Brown. That's the real groundwork. You can't do it any other way. You can play hours on the practice table on your own, but you need inspiration. Aaron Hill's a brilliant player, and Jordan Brown is a ranking tournament winner. So he's putting in the right kind of practice. And that's what O'Sullivan does do. People think, well, he's just brilliant and that's all. He's a great player. There's no more to it. But that's not in any way the case. All the hard work has been put in. As far as him being world champion, just quickly on that, you
Mm.
think about the last 3 world champions: Karen, first time winner, early 30s; Luca, 27, first time winner; and now 28-year-old Zhao Jintong. We've started to see more and more evidence that the younger players can go the distance better. I know Williams got to the final most recently, and he could have won it, although he did peter out in that final. So for that class of 92 to be world champion again, that's going to take some doing because the energy of the younger players has shone through in the last 3 years at Sheffield, haven't they?
Yeah, I've said it before on here, and it's a funny thing to say about someone who's won it 7 times, but funny things have just started happening to Ronnie at the Crucible in recent years. I think that session when he lost to Luca,
Wow.
he just fell apart.
Yeah.
That game he lost to Bingham, it went very weird. Something weird stuff happened, and then he had a complete meltdown against Zhao. He might have lost that game without having a meltdown, but that was very odd what he did in that
Yeah.
game as well. So funny things have started happening to Ronnie in Sheffield, and clearly he can't say he's got a problem with the Crucible because he's won it 7 times there. But the recent visits have ended strangely.
Yeah, well, the Bingham business, the match with Stuart Bingham, I think Desislava, he got her to stop play. People walking down that middle gangway between the tables, if you remember, coming in and out. Well, that's happened since 1977. That's been there. People have walked up and down there every year, and Ronnie has seen all that. And I do think that I'm sure it's distracting, but playing there is distracting, right? We know that. If your concentration there is no good or not up to speed, you can get put off by anything at the Crucible because it's hectic. You've been in there enough, you guys, to know what it's like there. There's a lot going on around you. There's lots of cheering and noise, all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't want to accept. But he was taking umbrage to what was happening down that middle aisle, which has just always happened. So that the point you make is right. He gets a little bit narked by stuff now, and I think the O'Sullivan that's in full concentration, which again, as I repeat, I think there's a big performance in him somewhere. When he's absolutely bang on it, those things don't seem to affect him in the same way. But maybe the Crucible's getting to him a bit these days. Maybe that's the bottom line.
Will be. Yeah, I remember that. I thought he was out of order that night, actually. I said so at the time with the referee. But yeah, he didn't. The Luca one, I mean, I was in there for that. Bloody hell. I mean, that was. He was actually competitive in 3 or 4 of those frames. Certainly the earlier frames of the session. But then towards the end, he was. That was a hell of a thing, actually. But yeah, we'll see. We can't wait for the spring already in some ways. But we must think first for the Masters, of course. Every match set to be live on BBC Television, BBC Two in the afternoons, mixture of BBC Two and BBC Four in the evenings. Friend of this podcast, Hazel Irvine, will be leading the presenting team. And another friend of this podcast, Ransi Chinyanganya, will be presenting the TNT Sports coverage of the Masters. Nearly obviously be a voice on there. So any sort of little tidbits, what can we look forward to? I know top coverage coming up.
Yeah, I think Rachel is doing the afternoon sessions and Radzi doing the evening sessions, as I understand it, as I've been told before Christmas, that is the case. So they're sharing the presentation duties between them, which is quite
Brilliant.
nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot, actually. And, there's something about the Masters, and that is special. And, the fact that you've got this one match to concentrate on makes it so much better. But yeah, the coverage is going to be great, obviously, all the way through, really. And it's just going to be a special occasion, and I'm delighted to be commentating on it. I'm on the very first match on day one,
Oh,
alongside Philip doing the Shaun Murphy match to start it off, and it'll be as good as ever, I'm sure.
fabulous. You and Philip Startle. That's a nice line. Nice couple of lines there. Thank you for that. We look forward to the coverage very much. Um, we could done all right, Phil. So we're going to keep to an hour. We're getting there. A quick word. We've had some action already in this new snooker year, Phil, and that includes the 17th maximum of the season. It came last Friday on the second day of the year from Chris Wakelin at the Championship League. Should say Tom Ford and Elliot Slessor have been the winners so far at that event. And also German Masters qualifying underway. And Mikhail Sabazic, he's really getting on a bit now. He's going to be 15 on Monday. He's but he had a win there, didn't he? Beat Craig Gerbuksani 5-3. But yeah, I mean, well, it's for you first, Phil, because I know you've been keeping an eye on events, and then we must get a word from Neil on these maximums. But 17 now, Phil, barking mad.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I wonder what we're going to end on. It's going to smash the record. Obviously, we've already passed the record, but it could absolutely destroy it. But it was a great one from Chris. It was weird that because I watched his first 2 games that day, and he was having a bit of a shocker, and then I think I went out in the afternoon, and then the next thing I'd seen, he made that, so we turned it around nicely. But yeah, it's worth watching the Championship League this week. There's some big names. I know on Thursday, Robertson, Kyron, and Zhao all join the party. So yeah, big names this week, and it's one of those weeks in qualifying that I wrote a piece. I could have written this loads of times, but it's just really big when it gets to this part of the year because it's German Masters and then Welsh Open qualifying this week. And if players who are sort of in the bottom half of the rankings lose them, it gets very, very quiet until the World Championship. Like they haven't got any snooker apart from the World Open, and then it's the World Championship qualifiers. So it feels like a very busy part of the year, and it is for people just following the sport with the Grand Prix Players Tour and everything else going on. But if you're missing out, if you're not in those cutoffs, then you're really quiet until the big one, and then people's careers are on the line in the World Championship qualifying, and you've barely played a match for months. So yeah, big week for guys who need wins in Ponds Forge, one of the homes of the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the two events coming up, the Welsh has always been a terrific event. I've liked it for years, and also the German Masters. A lot of players would like to be involved in that, and they are quite special tournaments. So you're absolutely right. These cut-offs, for the other events have been and gone now for the most part. Anyone that's not in the World Grand Prix would have to, well, win the German Masters or the Welsh to be involved in anything like the Players or the Tour Championship. I'm trying to work out how the Championship League works this week because some of the players I've seen that have been playing surely are not available for all of the groups because there's all these qualifiers. Like I saw Noppon Sankam and one or two other players who are in the Championship League, but then what's going to happen? Are they going to pull out? I mean, I don't suppose they know exactly who is going to be available to play in those groups leading up to Saturday, which is the last day of it, isn't it? So that in itself is a puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not. It's one of the more confusing events on the calendar, isn't it? The Invitational Championship League. I think they sort of on the fly a lot of the time, just putting in people in and out. I think Noppon, he was a late replacement for Carter, I think, going in there. But yeah, you're right. I'm
But
not
he's
sure what
playing a
happened, but
qualifier, isn't he? That's the thing. He's got to play
hmm.
in the German, I think, on the day after tomorrow, or well, tomorrow, I think it would be, or whatever day it is. So there's a few players like that. And the other thing I thought was quite amusing, and it was a terrific break, and I saw Dominic, who's a terrific commentator, but he said at the end of Chris Wakeling's 147 that he would be at least as pleased with that as it was winning the Scottish. I reckon the Scottish takes precedent over that 147, as brilliant as it was. And it was a special occasion, and Dominic's right, but I reckon he'd rather the Scottish was kind of would just take the edge somehow.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you? Even if it's just the small matter
Uh,
of the 100 grand he won there. One of the
Absolutely,
line for
yeah.
the qualifiers, I saw a young whippersnapper called Ken Doherty got a win today,
I
wow.
saw
and
that.
made a big break in there as well, 5-4 against Wang Yichen with a 1-3-4 along the way from Crafty Ken. So very,
Maybe
very good.
maybe that cue that he had 45 years he should have changed earlier because he's done quite well with that one, hasn't he? He
He's
he
looking
had
good.
that good win against Stan Moody, didn't he? With the different cue a couple of months ago, and then he didn't end up playing in the main event. But but our players like Ken are very experienced, aren't they? And he's like a lot of others on a going day. He's still capable of beating anyone with his knowledge and if his game comes together.
Sure.
And still loves playing. Can you believe Jimmy still plays? I mean, you talk about, you're not dissimilar in age, are you, Neil? I mean, can you? I mean, just why and
Yeah.
why?
Well, he loves the game. Listen, I was at the seniors event, which I really enjoyed, the British Open Seniors, which was in Derby on Boxing Day,
Yeah.
and for 3 days, and he was as fired up to play in that as anything. And the match with Alfie, who they're great pals, you wouldn't have known it. I mean, I know those two guys; they're like brothers to me. But there was. They played it as it should be. There was a little bit of an edge on the table between them, and Jimmy wanted to win, Alfie wanted to win, and of course in the end Joe Perry did for the lot. But yeah, look, he loves playing. I don't know if with Jimmy whether there's a fear of what life will be without snooker in it. I'm sure he was always working to do exhibitions and playing seniors events, but he wants to stay on the main tour, and. Yeah, I mean, I noticed he was beaten in the German Masters the other day in the first round, but yeah, look, while he wants to play and he still brings people in to watch the game. Anywhere he goes, Jimmy, then people want to have selfies with him. He's very good with the general public, very popular. So I never thought it was a bad thing to have these wild cards for as long as they have, and I think it's absolutely fine.
What's your analysis of all these maximums?
Unbelievable, isn't it? Unbelievable. I mean, yeah, I don't really know. I think that there's an argument. the first argument is the players are better than they've ever been. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But there's a few of these events that have been in China, the international, the event in Wuhan, and Shanghai. Even you think these pockets this week, I think we might see a maximum, and there usually is one or even two or three. And I think that the pockets are bigger. But that sounds like I'm being an old curmudgeon. I'm not saying it for any other reason than that's how I see it. But the standard of play has never been higher than it is now because the pockets were pretty big in the 80s and 90s on those old BCE tables, but we weren't knocking in 147s very much. So it's a combination of absolutely pristine conditions to play in and brilliant playing. We are going to see a lot more. And there is, as Dominic mentioned in commentary the other day, that there is still a magic. I love to see them. I still love to see them. However many have been made, it's 234 now. Um, it's still a great achievement for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a word about David Caulfield, who I think is always a journalist that, a writer that's, maybe doesn't always get the credit. He's beavers away, works extremely hard. He's written a piece, actually, funny enough, about the lows of 25, and he's very clearly stated about the pockets and thinks that's a factor of the 147s, which maybe, I think they've been actually a little bit better this season, the pockets, funny enough, but he sort of certainly has linked the two together. But listen, I think it's also fair to say that the players are better than they ever have been, and across the tour, it's not the big, that's what I think about it. It's not the big stars and the big names just making them, it's everyone making them. But listen, we must go. We must got one bit of correspondence, Neil. It's a lovely one. It's from Tim Peters. Thank you for writing in to us. Tim says, "Hi Nick and Phil. Just a quick email to wish you both a happy and healthy 2026. I'm a regular listener to yours and Mr. Hendon's podcasts. I enjoy them both, and many congratulations on the longevity of yours too. Being an anorak myself, I thoroughly enjoy them and very much appreciate the dissection of each tournament and your thoughts on the tour. I've worked from time to time in the game myself, but work primarily in horse racing circles. Neal Foulds is a long-time friend of mine, and I'm delighted you'll be having him on for your Masters preview. Don't get him started on the Ashes, though, well, we certainly will, or his favourite racehorse, Constitution Hill. When I think of the Masters, I still think of the late Paul Hunter. What a player he was, taken far too young. I was fortunate enough to watch him play at the fantastic Wembley Conference Centre with Neil. He beat Peter Ebdon 6-5 in the quarterfinals and then went on to win the event for the first time. Of course, he went to win it twice more after that. I will be at Ali Pali next week and I can't wait. The event still has that aura and prestige about it. No problem if you don't get time, but I have a light-hearted question for all three of you. What would be your choice of walk-on music, please? I am often underwhelmed by some of the choices made by the players. One exception I would make, though, is I Am a Cider Drinker by the Wurzels, which is used by Rob Milkins. Back in his playing days, Neil might have gone with the Smiths. Maybe he still will now. Neil does have a very diverse taste of music. I hope you had a smashing Christmas, and thanks again to you both, Nick and Phil, for all you do to promote the game. You both do an excellent job. Thank you. Oh, and Nick, Manchester United need a new manager. Throw your hat in the ring. All the best, Tim. Well, loads there, and of course we will ask you about the Ashes before we sign off, Neil. I wouldn't always, or we wouldn't always do this, but we did give each other a few hours' notice about the walk-on music, didn't we, Phil? So maybe to give a chance to give better answers, I think, rather than being thrown a hot potato. Maybe you first, Neil. What would your tune be? And also respond to Tim, who's sent us a lovely email.
Do I don't know. I agree about the Smiths. Tim's got that right. I mean, I thought that McGill coming out to This Charming Man was a brilliant choice. I think something along those lines. Another one of my favourite bands, Talk Talk. And I know that Barry Pinches, bless him, has come out to It's My Life by Talk Talk. Great choices there. I honestly don't know. I like so many different things. Some of the things that I like may not go down so well with the people. They wouldn't be clapping along with it in the way they do, Ken when he comes out to the Irish Rover or the Milkman when he comes out to the Wurzels. So I don't know, something by the Smiths maybe, or Talk Talk, or I don't know. I mean, I don't think many people are into Car Seat Red Hest, Car Seat Headrest, is a band I currently like. So it's going to have to
Oh.
be something from, going back a few years.
No, I think just go with what you like. Sod the customers.
Yeah,
Would
I
you ne
know.
would you ever have had entrance music? You ever come out to it?
No, I don't know. I think there was some talk about it. I played in the seniors about 2011, and I was going to come out to a Badly Drawn Boys song, Round the Block Twice, which probably summed me up as my time in the game. But what I do think is strange, that before you tell us yours, I know you both like your music, but I do think it was odd because in that Scottish Open recently, the semi-finals, two players in the semi-finals had the same walk-on, and they both lost. If Matt Stewart had won and Mark Allen had won, it would have been the same Red Hot Chili Peppers for both players, which I find
Wow.
extraordinary. That they both come up with that music, and there's more than one song. It's a bit like when Mark Williams played Jackson Page at the Crucible, and they both come out to Delilah, didn't they? Which, I mean, I can't. It just blew my mind that they would both come up with the same song against each other in the same match, and nearly happened in Edinburgh.
I think there's a problem with the Chinese players a lot at the Crucible because I don't know if they don't have the rights for songs they want or something, but they all come out to MGMT, all the same song, and it just get very, very samey after a while.
Yeah, I think that "Human" by the Killers seems to get a lot of airing as well, doesn't it? And yeah, so I'm not too sure how that works, but maybe they don't, as you say, get the same options that players from other parts of the world get. But look, everyone has got their own taste in music. I'm not having a go at the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but I think it would have been odd if both players had come
That's
out.
your line. That's your line, Phil. But that's what we're gonna get. Neal Foulds last night blasted the Red
Yeah.
Hot Chili
Yeah,
Peppers.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, bit of clickbait there. Yeah.
I'm always looking for snooker beef, so that is the least expected one of the season.
Yeah, yeah.
What about you,
Go
Nick?
on, Phil. What's yours? Oh, go on. You go first.
Well, I'm a heavy metal guy, and I always like the idea of going as heavy as possible for this kind of thing. Um, I've been asked this before, and I think I have a different answer every time. But the sort of really heavy band I'm listening to at the middle called Black Braid, who is an American sort of black metal band with sort of Native American twist to it. It's quite interesting, but I'd have a bit of that because I think the Crucible would be shocked by it, but it is very interesting.
Well, it's very kind of you to say we both like music, Neil. Indeed, we don't. We do, but my knowledge would pale into insignificance compared to you two. I know in that game, but I mean, I'm just a massive show off ultimately. I mean, there are various reasons for that, but listen, I think it would be "Daydream Believer" by the Monkees. No, I just that's my karaoke favorite. That's my always number one karaoke song. I'd get the crowd on my side. I think I would anyway. Hopefully, daydream, believe, arms in the
Yeah.
air, and I feel like I'd be 1-0 up. I mean, not the way I play snooker. I wouldn't be 1-0 up, Phil, but you know what I mean. If I was good at snooker, that's what I'd do. But just to change it a bit, back to the subject, back to the email. You were sort of pointing out that Tim's being quite humble there, saying he's involved a bit. He's done, he's very good racing commentator, but he's called a bit of snooker in his time, hasn't he?
He's absolutely outstanding racing commentator. I've never heard him make a mistake, and that is a very tough game. That some of the commentators in horse racing, David Fitzgerald, who's also worked on snooker, and some of the other guys that are primarily racing people, that is an incredibly difficult job. If you make one slip up and you misidentify a horse, maybe that wins, you get absolute pelters for that. So that's a very high pressure job. Tim's very good, but he also has done some commentary for TNT. And if you listen to Sean Murphy's 147 in the shootout, it's Fergal O'Brien and Tim Peters who were commentating
Mm.
on that. That's the voice you'll hear, because I think Dave was not there for 2 days. Tim came in and stepped in, did a great job, and as I say, he called the 147 of Murphy. So that's a feather in his cap, isn't it? And called it really well, him and Fergal.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Feather in the cap, I'd say. Well, that's smashing. I mean, as for Manchester United, I mean, I am partial to them. I mean, I tend to wish them well, but probably leave it to Ollie Glasner. He seems to be the favourite at the moment for that job. I was thinking, you're a QPR man, aren't you, Neil?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's not going so well, although we managed to overwhelm Sheffield Wednesday at the weekend, which was quite nice. Uh, which would have
What?
been a
What?
bit of a problem had we not done so.
Doesn't take much
Well,
doing,
yeah.
really, that does it?
No, that was kind of meant as a joke, really. Yeah, managed to get the better of a side on -7 points. So yeah, so well
There you
done.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was thinking about this, bit of a bizarre, call, but maybe, but it's true. I've never met a QPR fan I didn't like.
Oh
I
well,
thought, well,
that's
that
nice.
that that's quite a claim, isn't it? I've not been alive 5 minutes. I've been alive a while now, and I was thinking, well, my very best mate's Dan Cashton, ever, best friends ever, QPR fan. My great old mate Ian McCullough, top sports journalist. Fair few other friends too. And I thought what I'd do is, and you're on the list, of course, Neil. You're one of the famous QPR fans, but I didn't really know about any other ones, so I do now. Robert Smith
Yeah.
from The Cure. You probably know all
Wow.
these.
Yeah. And
Mick Jones from The Clash.
yeah, yeah. I didn't know that. I tell you, there's three cricketers who are QPR fans.
Oh yeah,
One of them, I understand, Alex Tudor. He's a big QPR fan. The former bowler, you remember, played for England, made that
yeah.
99 not out as a night watchman.
Do remember.
James Vince, Hampshire player. He's a big QPR fan. And Ashley Giles. I don't know why he is a QPR fan. I don't think he's from
Wow.
these parts. They're all big QPR fans. So that's quite nice, isn't it? Really, because there aren't many of us. I mean, I mean, I'm not the biggest football fan these days. I love football, but not as much as I used to. In the nostalgic days, I don't follow it, don't go to see them. But I grew up in West London in Southall, and really, there were two clubs. You either were a QPR or you were Brentford, and of course,
Mm.
at the time, Brentford were. No one supported Brentford at that point because they were at the old fourth division. They were doing nothing in the game. The old Griffin Park. So really, it was QPR unless you just wanted to go and support, Manchester United or Liverpool as it was. But so yeah, they've always been my side, and yeah, I mean that things like that can never change. You can't change allegiances, can you? Even though Brentford are doing a lot better now, maybe that would be the thing to do.
Well, if you're watching on YouTube, and I mean, how many do we have doing that now, Phil? It's up to about 7 or 8, isn't it?
Something like
This
that.
this Brentford hoodie is completely irrelevant. It's just because I went to a Brentford Manchester United match a couple of years ago and I realised, oh, it was a spring day and not foolishly I had nothing warmer to wear, so I brought it there. I love it. I really should get a hoodie that doesn't have football colours on it, but nothing to do with Brent. I have people coming up to me talking about old players they knew from 30, 40 years ago and all sorts. So it's been the I have to say though, people say nobody dislikes Brentford. Now I wear this hoodie everywhere. I can tell you there are some people out there that don't like Brentford. Not many, not many. Most people like them, but I can assure you there are some people that don't. But finish the list, Phil and Neil, particularly for you. Bill Bailey, the comedian, right? Apparently,
Okay.
Louis Theroux, apparently,
Wow.
yeah. Martin
I didn't know
Clunes,
that.
the actor, Men Behaving Badly, and all that, and in the world of football, Chloe Kelly is a big England star now. So there's quite a few of you, on that famous people list. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent, but
We're a bit of a harmless bunch, aren't we, QPR fans? We're just harmless.
yeah.
We're inoffensive people who just like QPR. We don't, we've not ever gone big really with that, have we?
I think certainly that's part of the lovable thing, is the harmless thing, probably. But um, just say we're going to go. I've spoken to Masters champion Shaun Murphy for Sporting Life. Piece coming soon, and Radio Snooker will be back on the air soon. I'll be talking TV coverage of the Masters. Neil, we loved having you. We just got to say, because we promised it on social media now. It looks like being 4-1 to Australia. I mean,
Mm.
it's a hard place to go, Australia. We know that. You talked off the air with us. You're obviously not happy. It's been in some ways a farcical tour. Question for me to kick off: did they prepare properly for this tour? And if not, why not?
No, they didn't, did they? And there was a little bit of arrogance in there. Listen, you're right to do this at the end of the podcast. So I don't know many people in snooker that actually like cricket. Mark Selby sends me the odd message, asking me about the Ashes, how it's all going. He likes a bit of cricket, and one or two. I think Matt Selt likes it, but generally there aren't that many. So it's right to be at the end where people can now, if they're not interested in cricket, can just turn it off, I suppose. But no, look, they haven't prepared well. I thought that Ben Stokes, when he said, "Oh, we're not doing it the way the old has been," said we should do it, and he's talking about like the likes of Michael Vaughan and maybe Ian Botham. I mean, I don't think that was the right thing to say at the
No.
start of the tour. We're not preparing like the has-beens. Well, it was not a very clever turn of phrase, which he apologised for about a week
You did
later.
say
But
sorry, yeah.
but he should never have fallen down that rabbit hole of saying that, because why would you say that? I mean, they're not has-beens, are they? They've done a lot in the game, and things have changed. It's a bit like when I speak about snooker and cues. things have changed, but really some things remain the same. And we normally go to Australia and get completely outmaneuvered. I mean, I've enjoyed watching it. I've enjoyed watching it. I've loved watching the darts as well. I mean, over Christmas, it's been
Mm.
great watching those great events. But the cricket's not gone very well. Just one thing I want to say before I will let you go now, but I want to say one thing that the £1 million first prize in the darts is fantastic. And I do think that, Luke Littler is an incredible darts player. And I absolutely love the darts. I see no reason why you should have, if you like snooker, you don't like darts or vice versa, and all this 9 dart 147 stuff. I'm not interested because they're both brilliant, but
Mm.
that is the biggest prize by an awful lot. And a lot of the snooker people, I think, are a little bit thinking, well, why aren't we getting £1 million first prize? But there's two £500,000 prizes in snooker, which is more than you've got in darts. You've got a 350,000 at the Masters. There's still very big prizes in snooker. Technically, I think that you can argue there's more money in snooker still than darts. That world title, a million, is wonderful, but £500,000 for the worlds, £500,000 for Saudi, 350 for the Masters. There's lots of other events. A lot of the big events in darts are still on 100, 150,000, which is again big money. But it's only the World Championships that surpasses anything that is in snooker. There's lots of huge money opportunities in snooker, so I don't think the snooker people should get too worked up about that.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. And we're running out of time now. I was going to go in more there, but there's one thing I really wanted to ask you about before we go, because I think a lot of people, when the ITV tournament's already left, which was sad news, moved to Channel 5. When I posted on that, I think the only response I got from everyone was disappointing not to see your name on the Channel 5 team. Is that something you spoke to those guys about? Is that something that might change in the future? What sort of happened there?
Oh, I don't know. No, look, look, I'm disappointed to have missed out on it, no doubt about that. And I have seen that a few people have responded in that way, and I'm very touched by it. But look, I am disappointed. But I had such a great association with with ITV for 13 years. I've got no regrets. They are involved in the production side of it, and it's a Channel 5 event. And look. If ever I was asked to work on it, I'd be delighted to. But I think that they've got such a pretty good team going forward that they're not going to need much help. But yeah, I mean, I can't deny I was disappointed, but I was in the right place at the right time with all that from the very beginning, and I know that for someone that was a good but never a great player, I think I've been very lucky over the years. So whatever happens in the future, I want to keep working in it, but I have no regrets, and there's no hard feelings over it.
Right. Yeah, I didn't want to end on a sour note there, but
No, no,
it
no,
wasn't
no.
sour because the overwhelming, and not just overwhelming actually, the 100% feedback was just like, "Where's Foldsy?" So yeah, I just wanted to get your take on it.
Yeah, no, that's very kind of it. It's absolutely fine anyway. But thank you for asking.
Of course, ITV did it so brilliantly for so long, and you all you guys talked about how well you got on and how good it was, and that was shown on air. And
Mm.
you can't fool the public. The best teams on television have always had that chemistry together, and that's obvious. Yeah, we're going to go say Luke, as you mentioned, Luke Littler won the world darts title, still only 18. Manchester United on the lookout for a new manager again after the sacking of Ruben Amorim. Just say thrilling King George, Phil, and Neil Neil, another sport you love. Jukebox Man winning that, owned by Harry Redknapp. Loads of big sport to come on TNT, of course, including all the snooker, all the time, Premier League and European Cup football, and soon the Winter Olympics. So the wheels of sport won't stop turning. But on this podcast, of course, our focus will always firmly be on snooker. We've got the Masters on the way. And Phil, we are planning, aren't we, to return in a week's time, all being well next Thursday, in between the first round and the quarterfinal stage. I mean, I'm not really a great predictions person, full stop. So you cannot say a winner. To me, it's Nostradamus. I mean, anyone can win these things. But, you know, I was thinking Mark Allen, but you guys have put me off that the way you talked about him earlier. So I don't know now. Maybe I'll still say him because then I've got that thing of if he wins it, oh, I should have said it. But anyway, Neil, you've been delightful to have on again the second time. Sorry, went a bit over the hour, but thank you so much, sir, and just enjoy the tournament. We'll love hearing you call it.
Yeah, thank you. Great pleasure. All the best for the new year, guys. Thank you.
I think we said that it was really hard to pick most of those first rounders, but if there's one thing that was certain on this podcast, it was that we were going to go over the hour. So we didn't let anyone down there.
Go on,
Yeah.
Phil.
Well, thank you.
You've got to say you think might win it, Phil, because I sort of have.
Judd Trump.
Oh dear. Well, yeah, he'll certainly give you a run for your money, that guy. Great to have Neal Foulds with us. You know, we're very fortunate. It's been a great guest. I know this will do great business for us, and we really are, you know, very grateful. Enjoy the Masters, everyone. Always incredibly special, and all being well, as I say, we'll be back with you halfway through the tournament to update you on the first round and ahead of the quarterfinals. Keep your thoughts coming. TalkingSnooker@yahoo.com or tweet us at Talking Snooker. With thanks to the brilliant Neal Foulds. This is your old friends, Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalf, saying that's your lot for this time. Cheerio.